What's up, my friend? Welcome back to the Wealthy Coach Podcast. I'm Kendra Perry, your host, and I'm pumped. I love being here. I love podcasting. I love invading your eardrums. Anyways, um, we're going to talk about motivation and productivity today. It's a common topic and sort of pain point that comes up with my audience. And I think you're going to be a little bit surprised about what I talk about today. You might think of me personally as a highly motivated individual. And yes, I probably do have more motivation than a lot of people, but I'm actually probably not as motivated as you think. And I'm honestly very often not motivated at all. Okay. I will, sit at my desk and just feel like not being there. I'm not inspired. I'm not energized. Sometimes I'm tired. As you know, I have a newborn. My baby is about 8 months right now. And so, while he's not doing night feeds anymore, like he's up early and sometimes he does wake up in the night and I'm tired, right? I'm running a business. I have a baby. Like I'm distracted. Like there are so many times where I do not feel motivated to go to work. And honestly, right now, at the time of this recording, again, well, I love being here with you. I'm looking outside at this beautiful day and I'm thinking, oh, I just want to go for a walk right now. Or, you know what? I could have a nap. Or, you know what? I feel like watching an episode of Love Island, right? There's other things that I would sometimes rather be doing. And I have zero motivation a lot, but I still do the work. I almost always do the work. The exception is maybe when I'm actually sick. The maybe like 1.5% of the time I'm just going to like not work cuz I don't feel good, but 99.5% of the time when I'm not motivated, I still do the work. Okay? So, I actually think motivation is a myth. And if you are trying to get more motivation and you are trying to work when you're motivated, you're going to really struggle to build your business because motivation is not what makes me get the work done. Okay. Um, Discipline is. Okay. So if you are waiting for motivation to strike, it's like you're waiting for a unicorn to show up at your door. Okay. It's not happening for a lot of us. And it's normal to not feel motivated. And there's a lot of other entrepreneurs that I've heard this from. I listened to Layla Hermosi's podcast, the wife of Alex Hermosi. They have like a multi-million-dollar portfolio. Like they make a lot of money. They make millions and millions of dollars a month. And I've heard her say that she's rarely motivated. And so I don't actually think you need motivation to be successful in business. Okay. So, what is motivation? Maybe let's start there. Okay. It's really the internal drive to take action, and it's fueled by either intrinsic or extrinsic awards. So, intrinsic, and this is, I think, typically what we're looking for when we're waiting for a motivation, is the motivation that comes from within, right? Curiosity, passion, vision, that sort of thing, where extrinsic is from the external rewards, right? So we're motivated to have recognition, to feel a certain way, to get money, right? And I mean, both play a role, right? But some research has shown that only 17% of people feel motivated at work, right? And motivation tends to peak, right, when we're starting a new project, right, where there's like excitement. It's kind of like the beginning of a relationship. You just met someone, there's like that dopamine, and you're like in that honeymoon phase, but it fades over time. And sometimes it fades really quickly. Okay. And this is why, some people don't finish things. I'm a little bit like this with like home stuff. For example, there was a hole in our wall from, I can't remember what we put through the wall. We were moving something like a couch or something, and there was this hole in the wall. And I was like, I'm going to be super handy and I'm going to fix this. And I went and bought the kit and I fixed it up. And that was 2 years ago and I still haven't painted it, right? Because you take the putty, like the plaster, you put a little screen over it and then you cover it and you kind of shave it down and make it like flush with the wall. But then you actually have to paint it. It's been 2 years and I still haven't painted it, right? I was super motivated, but then I didn't have the paint. So I was like, oh, I'll get the paint. But then motivation faded and I still haven't painted that wall. Okay. So motivation is not reliable, right? Because it comes and goes like waves at a beach, right? It's fleeting. So again, if you're just waiting for motivation, it's like you're waiting for the perfect weather to like go for a walk. And so if it's raining for the next 2 weeks, then you're just never going to move your body, where you could just put the raincoat on and be like, well, I'm just going to walk every day, even if it's raining. Okay. So motivation sucks. And I do not recommend kind of chasing motivation. Focus on discipline. Okay. And discipline is about doing what needs to be done, even when you don't feel like it. Let me repeat that. Okay. Discipline is about doing what needs to be done, even when you don't feel like it. Okay. So it's sturdy, it's dependable, right? It's what gets you where you need to go, where motivation is unreliable and you might just end up in the ditch. Okay. That's not a great analogy, but I'm just kind of coming up with this on the spot. Okay. So I want to start by talking about some steps you can take to actually build discipline, because this is why I get shit done in my business. This is why I get a shitload done in the limited time I have to work, is because I'm disciplined. I do what needs to be done, even when I don't feel like doing it. Okay. And you've probably done this before in your life, right? Because a lot of us have had some sort of corporate job before where there's a boss, right? And so you show up to work, you're like, I don't really want to be here, but you do your job and you do it well. A lot of us have had that experience. The only problem is in entrepreneurship and having a business is there's no boss saying, I'm going to fire you if you don't do your shit, right? It's just you. And you can be like, oh, I'll do it tomorrow, right? And you're not going to get in trouble, but your business isn't going to grow and you're not going to make money and you're not going to get clients, right? So the first step is simple. Just start small, right? Don't try to take these huge leaps. Maybe just start with baby steps, right? Maybe commit to 30 minutes a day of focused work or an hour a day of focused work, even when you don't want to do it, even when there's tons of distractions, and just build from there. Okay. Number two is create routines. Okay. Because routines reduce decision fatigue, right? And they do make discipline automatic, right? So do the same thing every day. Wake up, do your meditation, like have your coffee, do a bit of reading, and then go down to your computer and work on a specific thing. Okay. For example, every Tuesday, I work on content in my business. And so I spend the morning working on maybe writing emails for my email list, maybe creating Instagram content. Like today, it's a Tuesday and I am recording podcasts. So I do that every Tuesday. So on Tuesdays, what am I doing? Well, I'm creating content, right? So again, do everything the same, whatever makes sense for you. And sometimes maybe mimicking the routine of your corporate job might help. So if you recently came from a corporate job and that involved like getting up, having breakfast, getting dressed, putting on makeup, and then commuting, do the same thing. Obviously, you're not going to commute, but maybe instead of going for the drive for the commute, you could just go for a walk and just do the same thing. Because if you don't know what you're doing every day and you just kind of show up and you're like, what do I do? That's a really good way to not have discipline. Okay. Number three, reward yourself, right? So maybe pair the task that you don't like doing with a reward, right? Because that's going to reinforce positive behavior. So, for example, maybe you hate writing emails for your email list. Well, maybe write your emails and then go to a coffee shop, get your favorite sandwich and a coffee, or maybe, go for a walk outside or go for a swim in your pool or like whatever that is, right? So, always pair the two things together. So, for me, I love recording podcasts, but I often batch them. So I record a lot at once. So it's a little bit draining for me. So when I record podcasts, that's all I do. I record podcasts and when I'm done, I'm done. I don't go back to do anything. Maybe I'll respond to some team stuff if there's something going on that requires my attention, but I just finish. And for me, that's a reward to just like be done and not work up to the minute where I have to take over and do childcare. So sometimes I have an hour, I have 30 minutes, I have 20 minutes to just chill. Right. And so that's kind of how I do that. Now, number four is really important. And a lot of us are really bad at doing this because most of us are people pleasers, but this is to learn to say no. So having discipline means cutting out distractions and it means cutting out unnecessary commitments. Okay. It's really easy to say yes to so many things. The longer you're online, the more opportunities you get presented. And I say no to things all the time, even when it's maybe a good opportunity. I want to do it, but I know it's going to prevent me from doing something else that's more important. Right. So, for example, like, maybe someone's going to say, hey, you want to go for a hike? And that's the day where you're supposed to do content and you want to go for the hike, but you're like, I need to get content done. Just say no, right? Just say no to unplanned tasks that derail your focus. Okay. You really have to really focus on what matters in your business. Okay. And then the fifth one, which honestly for any goal is impactful, is to track your progress, right? So seeing how far you've come will help you build momentum, right? So maybe you use a habit tracker or a journal to record daily wins. Maybe at the end of each day, you sit down with a journal and you're like, okay, what did I do good today? And what do I need to work on? There's a lot of research that shows that people who actually track their progress see better results. Okay. So, again, discipline is about doing what needs to be done, even when you don't want to do it. And that is something you are going to have to cultivate if you want to be successful as an entrepreneur, whether it's in online coaching or some other space. Okay. Cool. Okay. So now I want to give you 5 of my best productivity hacks because we want to be more productive. But in order to be productive, you need to have discipline. So that's why I wanted to talk about discipline first. Okay. Now, the first one is to split up admin and creative tasks. So, what are admin tasks? What are creative tasks? Okay. So, admin tasks are things that don't require your creative energy. They're like things like, filing or scheduling social media, answering emails, bookkeeping, stuff like that, right? Creative tasks actually require your creative focus. So that would be something like creating content for social media. It might be something like creating client protocols, recording podcast episodes, stuff like that. Things that you actually need to be in a certain frame of mind in order to do. And there's research on this that switching back and forth between these two tasks is actually what creates a lot of fatigue. Because truthfully, having good productivity is about energy management, right? Because if we blow all our energy with tasks that drain us, then we're not going to have the energy to do the tasks that matter. Okay. So if we are, answering an email and then we're jumping on Instagram stories and we're creating a client protocol and then we're scheduling social media, when we jump back and forth between those tasks, we create a lot of energy drain on our body, and that will literally just kill your productivity. So we want to separate those tasks. And really what it's about is figuring out like when is the best time of day or the best time of the week for you to do creative work. So figure out, and you probably know this, like when are you the most focused, right? For me, it's the earlier in the day, the better, right? By about noon or 1 p.m., I'm like done. Like I can, unless there's like something that has a really, really strict deadline and I'm behind, it's really difficult for me to sit down after 1 p.m. and get anything creative done. So for me, I schedule things like creating content, updating programs, creating, recording podcast episodes for the morning, because that is when I'm more likely to succeed and actually do a good job at those things. Whereas the admin stuff, I sort of save for the end of the day. So as an example, I will sit down at 8 a.m. at my desk and I will just go deep and focus in on some sort of creative task. And then at about noon, when my brain kind of starts to die down, this is when I will jump into my Facebook group and support my students, because that stuff is kind of easy for me. It's very easy for me to interact with my students and give them feedback, right? And then on Thursdays, my work block is from 12:30 to 5. So the afternoon, that's when I do all my admin stuff, right? So that's when I will do my bookkeeping stuff. That's when I will maybe, schedule my Facebook ads or whatever. That's when I'll do things that just don't require that creative power. So this is really, really important. This is the biggest thing because people like to jump back and forth between tasks and then they utilize their most productive time of day for admin tasks. So like don't wake up. If you're a morning person, you get your best work done in the morning, don't wake up and check your email. Okay? Don't start filing client lab results or something like that. Like save that for the times of day where your brain doesn't work as well. Okay? So I've sort of talked about number 2. I think I kind of gave it away, but we only want to be doing creative tasks at our most focused time of day. And everyone's different. You might get more work done in the evening, whereas I get more work done in the morning. Okay. So you really want to figure out when that is. Either you're a morning person, maybe you're a midday person, or you're an evening person. Now, obviously, sometimes we have commitments that prevent us from, doing our work at our best time of day. For example, if you are an evening person, but that's when your kids are home. Well, maybe at this season in life, you're going to have to make it work at a different time of day. So yes, there is that, but you really want to, as much as you can, reserve your high focus periods for brainstorming, writing, strategy work at the time of day where your brain is the most focused. Okay. Number 3 is obvious, but you need to be in control of your technology. You cannot let your technology control you. You need to turn off all your push notifications. If your phone is constantly pinging, even if it's like work related stuff, then it's going to derail your focus, right? Because we hear that notification and we get a little bit of a dopamine hit, and it's really hard to stop thinking about that push notification. The only push notifications I get on my phone are calendar stuff, because otherwise I'm going to miss an appointment. I need constant reminders that, there's some sort of meeting I need to attend. So that, and then Slack, which is my team, because if my team is working on a project and they need something from me in order to continue working, I want to make sure I give them that. But that's it. Okay. And so if you don't have a team, then really maybe just your calendar invite or on the phone, or maybe you set it up so that only your husband can text you or something like that, in the case that there's something happening with your kid or something like that. So you want to disable this, right? Another thing you can do in your phone, which I do, is I have 3 times a day where I get notifications. So you put it on a schedule. So rather than getting those notifications all day, I only get notifications at noon and 3 p.m. So at the time of my day where I'm going to respond to more of that stuff, that's noon. And then at the end of the day, so I can get things done. So you can also do that on your phone as well. But you want to make sure those are turned off on your desktop and your phone. And honestly, like right now, as I record this podcast, my phone is in airplane mode. So nobody can get hold of me. Okay. Number 4 is really important, is you need to understand the difference between a task and a project. Okay. When you don't understand the difference, this leads to overwhelm and ultimately procrastination. Okay. So, for example, if you have a to do list that's like, email this person, schedule social media, and then you have update website, what's the task and what's the project? So, update the website is the project. And that's going to be the thing on your list that you never get done, right? You never get it done because you see update website and you're like, holy shit, I just don't have time for that, right? So, instead of putting update website on your list, break it down into tasks, right? So sit down and you're like, okay, I need to update my website. What are all the things I need to do? I need to, go through my website and first determine what needs to be updated. So that would be a task. I need to update the content for each section. Cool. I need to come up with new brand colors and new shapes, new fonts, whatever. And so separate it into each individual task, and then those things go on your list. So you're maybe like, okay, this week, I'm just going to go through my website and determine what needs to be updated. That you will actually get done, right? So don't just say launch my course, break it down into create the content, create the outline, create the content, create the modules, like record the videos, right? Because otherwise, every time you look at that project on your task list, your brain is just going to melt down, okay? Now, number 5 is, I think, just so critical to productivity and also discipline, okay? And this is to always have a plan when you go into your week. Okay. If you sit down at your computer and you're like, okay, well, now what do I do? You are going to waste so much time. And with productivity, we can't give you more time in the day. There are the same number of hours in the day. So it's what you do with those hours. So never go into your week without knowing what you're doing. Now, you can be flexible. Maybe something comes up or you take less time doing something, you take more time doing something, you can shift it around, but come up every week with what you're going to do. So whether it's a Thursday or a Friday or a Sunday where you sit down and you look at your calendar, you look at what blank space you have on your calendar, and you determine what you are actually going to work on. Okay. And you should really never have more than 3 priorities each week. Okay. And so figure out like what's the most important. Okay. Always have a plan. And so I actually time block my calendar. Now I can move those blocks around on my calendar. So sometimes things change and something becomes a bigger priority that wasn't previously a priority. That happens. But if you go to a grocery store without a shopping list, sometimes you're just wandering around aimlessly and you forget things. But if you actually have a list, then you're going to actually get those things done. So always have a plan when you go into your week. This is so critical. The more you plan, the more you will get done. Okay. So just remember that productivity isn't about working harder or waiting for motivation. It's about discipline, it's about systems, and it's about intentional planning. Okay. Stop chasing motivation. If you don't feel motivated, you're just normal. There's nothing wrong with you. I don't feel motivated most of the time, but I'm disciplined. Okay. So build habits and structure, right? Create routine and make sure that you have a plan when you go into your week. And again, understand the difference between creative and admin tasks. This is really important. Okay. So hopefully this is helpful and hopefully this has helped you feel more normal, because I think a lot of us don't feel motivated, and it's just so normal to not feel motivated. And again, some of the most successful entrepreneurs like Leila Hormozi, I don't know how to say her name, feels unmotivated most of the time, yet she generates like multi-millions every month. Okay. And so it's not because she's motivated, it's because she's disciplined. All right, my friend, I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Wealthy Coach Podcast. I will see you next Monday, same time, same place, where I help you become wealthy AF.